kina semdol ka ke mo fa seda.
All right, here we go. Midweek. Welcome to Talking in Stations. I'm your host, RonUSMC, and with me, as always, is my partner in crime. Here we go, Silver Suspiria. How you doing, Silver?
I'm doing well tonight, Ron. How are you?
I'm good, man. I'm good. We have a very exciting show for you tonight. Two very esteemed guests that we're very happy to have on. First, let me introduce Sort Dragon. And you, Sort, you're the Alliance exec of DEDCO, is that right?
Coalition exec, but yeah, good morning.
Coalition exec, good morning. And second, we have Pando from Initiative, who we all know very well and has really done really well streaming and the FC chats. Everything's just wonderful. So how you doing, Pando?
Hey, doing great. Thanks for having me on.
Super happy to have you guys on. You know, so as everyone is, kind of aware, there's been a lot of movement over on your side of the map, and I was wondering if you guys, or Sword, or if you guys could take a few minutes and give us, like the background of how this sort of happened the past couple of months.
Go ahead, Pendo.
I would say past couple of months. Actually, I think that's a long story going, like probably years. So I think technically we are, it's half and half. We're helping GHG because obviously, they're under attack. But I think maybe even more so, we are trying to hurt like PanFam in their advance right there. So I always call it a feel-good campaign on their side because obviously they have the numbers advantage going into that war. And, we're trying to kind of level it out a little bit. I'm not sure if we can do it entirely, but it for sure is going to make that whole conflict a little bit more interesting. And from a history perspective, we actually used to be not enemies to GOTG. No, we certainly weren't friends for the longest time. I think ever since Dinner Coalition, and that's all ages ago. But it's like old grudges. But we kind of got rid of that, and I think that's partly because of PanFam or NC, and it's a common enemy, and it kind of connects people.
The enemy of my enemy is my friend, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, I can. On our side, I mean, we even up until probably a month and a half ago, Pando and I were fighting each other in Fade with Snuff coming. The blackout hit us pretty hard. We had groups that were heavily affected, Russian groups, Chinese groups who were heavily affected by the blackout. And when the blackout was finishing or midway through, we had the Super Cap fight against Snuff. And if it wasn't for Pando, that fight would have gone completely differently. I've always tried to work with Initiative, and Initiative and us have kind of had a we'll work together on this timer, and then the next timer we'll shoot each other. It's been a pretty good dynamic relationship. And this time when we moved to Branch, we were approached and said, are you guys interested? They actually asked us if we were interested in working with them, and it was surprising at the start because it's not something I expected. But they were helping on timers, but it was not something I expected deployment-wise. And it's kind of nice because we moved our supers because NC moved theirs, and generally supers staging next to each other are a good thing to stop people using super. It keeps the fights in subcaps. It keeps the fights refreshing and fun, not one side just dunking the other side. So that's why we moved ours, and then Initiative moved theirs as well. So it gives us a little bit more cover as to what fights we can take and what we would just get blood with supers.
Yeah, sort of like mutually assured destruction kind of keeps things a little tame, yeah?
Yeah, I mean, it's also, you have to understand, like, everyone thinks they want a super cap fight, until they're in a super cap fight, and it's taking 14 hours to finish, and you're there until downtime. It's super cap fights just aren't as fun as everybody thinks. They're great to look at the battle report afterwards, but FCing them and leading them and actually going through them is horrible.
If you take the video, if you record it and you speed up that video like 15 times, they're some of the most amazing things ever, right? But sitting through 10 hours, like you're good. You know, I've always found it really interesting, you know, because I think the longer that you play, you're friends with people, you're enemies with people, and that sort of keeps the game going, right? It's more fun, and grudges. Sometimes, you know, people can't let go of grudges, or, you know, that kind of thing. And I'm kind of wondering, I think the last time that we got in touch with you guys was right after the Imperium was kind of pulling back and leaving that sort of Petri dish, you know, around the tribute area. And, you know, what sort of, like, why has PanFam started to move into that direction now? Like, what has anything sort of sparked that? Is it just like out of the blue, or did you see something coming?
It was always going to come after I stopped working with them. The difference is that it's much easier for them to attack from Cobalt Edge, where there's less. They can use their supers and they can have less hostiles show up in Cobalt Edge, where the difference is Tribute, because it's so deep in space, it's so deep in the universe. It's the far right corner of the game, and so it's much easier for them to create the war from Cobalt moving into Tenal than it is to say Venal, where there's still the potential for someone to come from Pure Blind or Tribute to attack them. So it's more of a safe idea. Plus, Tenal is the outreaches of our space. We don't really care a huge amount about Tenal, so it allows for us to seed timers and also allows for them to have wins as well.
I think the main reason for them to like make that step actually was activity, because I think also, I'm not sure if Blackout had a big part in it, but in general NC.'s activity was so low that they had to do something, and then that was the first thing they would think, yeah, okay, we can go for that, and you know, it's achievable and all that, you know, checks all the boxes. So I think that's the main reason, actually, the activity part.
Well, they also didn't want to be involved in the fraternity war anymore. That was one of the things as well. They were involved in fraternity, and they actually left fraternity to die. So, I think that's an interesting side of it as well.
Yeah, there was some weird stuff going on.
They're on my Christmas card list for that. Yeah, go ahead, Pando. Go ahead, Pando. I'm sorry I interrupted you.
No. I just wanted to say, like, yeah, there was some weird stuff. I don't have the whole story ready, but I think they asked Norance, which is the leader of fraternity, to come up and help them against GOTG, and you know, all that stuff. Or DEFCON. All right. Sorry, I always miss.
Well, now that it's out, I can confirm that. I mean, that part was true. They did ask. So the connection between Ranger Regiment and fraternity is deep. They used to be in Winterco, and it was actually Wind Spirits who asked me to take in Ranger Regiment years and years ago. It was probably years and years ago. It's probably 2 years ago, and they were still blue. We were still blue with each other. It was probably DEFCON's, even as far back as GO2G, we were blue. And they, NC, basically said, come and attack Ranger Regiment, or and fraternity said no, and they said, okay, we'll die, go and have your own war. We're going to go and do our own thing. And they left them to die, which is kind of fucked up.
Yeah, you know, there was some weirdness around that, right? I mean, I remember, you know, that because the Army of Mango has a lot of ties with Ranger Regiment, but, you know, they were like, oh, can you come down and help? And they were, you know, it was like PanFam was hitting them, so they were occupied, and it was just, I just remember there was a lot of weirdness with that.
No, but see, that's the actual different thing. Ranger Regiment has a stronger connection with Winter than it does with Mecha. It doesn't matter. Like the bunny thing has literally nothing to do with it. They were always Drone, the leader of Ranger, and Craig, the leader of Ranger before Drone, was always asking to go and help Winter, never asking to go and help Mango. They actually particularly don't like Mango, just because of what Mango did to Serenity, and that's how their relationship is regarding that.
And from an inner perspective, you might remember, like, we showed up at the beginning of that whole conflict. We showed up like a handful of times to help you guys, and the main reason for that was that the other side would get support from PanFam. When it was clear, though, PanFam wasn't showing up, then for us it was like, yeah, do we now lopside this entirely? Do we show up like to every timer, and then like we don't get much out of it, so we stopped showing up to those timers too, which didn't make any difference to the end result, I think, but I think it would have probably sped up stuff. And
one of the things that people don't actually realize is that so we obviously had a very big problem with PanFam since the Gobbins branch thing, and we had agreed never to work with PanFam again. The only thing that would have changed that was Fraternity. Fraternity asking for help. We would have put our kind of not differences aside, but our I guess differences, actually, that's probably the best way to put it. And we would have helped and worked alongside PanFam for the good of Fraternity. And that was always the kind of the deal. We had plans already to go down. We were Ranger was set to deploy down to Fraternity, I think around a couple of days just before NC arrived, because they'd come to an agreement, because Darkness part of DEDCO wasn't exactly needed as much as Ranger, because obviously Ranger had the number. So Ranger was going down, and then Siberian squads, which at the same time zone, were going down as well, and then we would come down through Worm. But due to the I guess you could call it the fallout between Fraternity and NC, that didn't end up happening. And then obviously, as you can see from history, Fraternity lost their war as well.
Yeah, it was really confusing there towards the end. NC was down, Pandemic Horde. I mean, not all of Pandemic Horde, but a SIG deployed down there, and the numbers were astronomical for a little while. And then we had we started getting help from Imperium, and there were some really big fights. And then during this time, what I thought was interesting was, while we were all sort of, in this big boxing ring with each other, the tribute was just kind of left, like stagnant, right? And, these small groups are kind of, popping up, and all these kind of interesting fights. And it was, everyone was talking about it, and none of the real sort of big powers got involved, right? And I thought that was great. It was super, super interesting, right? For people to have somewhere else to go. And then, all of a sudden I see PanFam hitting, and I remember I asked somebody, and I forget who it was. It was somebody from Pandemic Horde leadership, and they said, "Oh, that's just for content, But then, okay, so it's for content, but I see 1 and 2 and 3, and I hear these, glorious battles of winning outnumbered and outmanned, and I'm like, wait, what? Is this sounds like a war sort of forming, right? Like it's kind of heating up. And then the first I hear, and I have to admit to you, Pando, that was a super secret deployment. That was super secret, man. I didn't hear anything about that. And then and then I see you guys shifting. Do you see PanFam sort of kind of pushing more weight into that to really just kind of sweep down and kind of push you guys down? Or how do you see that sort of ending or progressing over the next couple of months?
If I have to take a bet, I would bet they're going to call for help, as much help as they can, because at the moment not all of Horde is deployed. So, I would guess all of Horde will deploy. And then, I mean, that's the thing what we said, and you said it was super secret. Well, one of the main reasons is it was pretty spontaneous too.
Oh, okay.
It was like, and also I wanted to actually not deploy right that quickly because I like stuff to be perfectly organized before and all that stuff. Maybe that's the German part of me, I guess.
Yeah.
But if you think about it, we had to deploy on that weekend because otherwise, next weekend is Eve London. We're going to be at Eve London. Then that's there's a little bit of delay, and then how much progress are they going to make within like these 2 weeks, and then the weekend after we could deploy, but then we have to set up. So it's all a long time. So we decided to deploy on that weekend and get the stuff going, get a feel for the region, see what they actually bring. Right, we're testing the waters at the moment, and and then set us up for some fun stuff. I need to test some new doctrines too, so that's what we're gonna do.
I mean, I guess there's a couple of empty slots there in the doctrine roster, so it'll be interesting. Speaking of the big sort of snuffed out capital fight, I thought that was just such a great win, and it's an interesting win, but the other thing is that sort of led into the NC, right? I think it was NC subs, or was it Pandemic Horde subs and NC caps? Or was one or the other. It was like, I just remember that it was kind of weird and it went on for hours. And I think, Pando, you streamed it because I was watching some of it. It was like, I don't know, it was just like a strange kind of battle. I don't know, because that was over a Fortizar, I think, or if I remember right.
Yeah, I'm not sure which system it was. I think
it's like where they held the field or something. They just kept coming back.
Yeah, exactly. Like, what's the fun? With the like massive dread bomb, counter dread bomb, and all that.
Yeah, the dread fight in Tenal. I mean, that was all NC though. It wasn't. There was no.
Oh, okay.
There. Or if it was, it was a very small contingent.
Yeah, I think Horde was there in caps. Maybe I don't even remember, to be honest.
Yeah, so they may have came in. They were in range, but yeah, I mean that fight was chaos. It was more stressful than a super cap fight, because it was the first time we'd had a cap fight with the new recons, and I remember just freaking out continuously. And I know they would have been at the same time trying to find, because we kept losing our signers coming in, and then whoever was leading the dreads on the NC side was just not good. They weren't very because they kept jumping in small groups of dreads after their dreads were dying, so that's why so many dreads died.
Yeah, and there was like I think they were jumping to the wrong recons, and there was a lot of kind of chaos. And I remember when I first saw that, and I think I was watching Pando's stream. It's like, and Pando was like, they're coming back, they're coming back on the field. And I remember watching that, and I was like, well, committing that much, right? I mean, this is, kind of a hints of the future, right? Like they're really going to start committing on that. So it kind of, surprised me, right? It was like out of the blue. So I don't know, it kind of sets the stage, right? And then now you guys are moving up, they're pushing over. I checked out where you guys are staging, and I thought it was fantastic. I mean, you have great coverage, super, and I mean, with caps, you cover everything. But, and Killa on Sunday was talking about, that he was hoping for some super fights. And I don't know, how do you guys feel about super fights?
They don't plan. They're never planned. There's very few super fights in the game that have ever been planned. What will happen in this war will most likely have happened in every other war, where someone will make a stupid mistake, jump instead of bridging, or it'll just be the right moment, and one side will capitalize and the other side will have to catch up, and that's generally how every super cap fight goes.
I also think with the resources both sides got, I think it's maybe everyone is more in a position of losing than ever before too, so both sides might be more than willing to actually commit, so we'll see.
The big
I'm
dynamic
certainly.
is Rhino.
Yeah, I mean, I like the super fights, even if it's heavy tie-dye. If it's once a year, I can do it once a year, maybe twice a year. I can enjoy that, even if it's heavy tie-dye. And just from a story perspective, to get some headlines out there for CCP to milk or whatever. I think, yeah, why not? Let's do it, right?
One thing I will say. Oh, go ahead. Sorry.
No, go ahead.
One thing I will say, and I mean, Pando can probably attest to this, when we had the Super Cap fight against Snuff, which is around about the same size as what we're looking at in this particular, there was little to no tie-dye. And that, when you're FCing a Super Cap fight with little to no tie-dye, it's a completely different Super Cap fight, because a lot of the times you'll base your bubbles on Super Caps lasting for an hour, whereas under no tie-dye, they can disappear in under 2 minutes or in 2 minutes. And smart bombs work effectively and everything like that. So it's going to be a completely different fight if what happens when we fought Snuff happens this time. And I think that's going to be the big defining factor, because the first hour to hour and a half of the fight, there's going to be less tie-dye.
Yeah, and so the tie-dye is going to be super heavy if it ever kicks off. The tie-dye is going to be so heavy. That's probably why Panfam will be super confident going in, because they know they're closer. Super cap-wise, if they bang the drums, this is the biggest fight the world has ever seen. Every little hotlinger in every time zone is going to log in and to rush to that place. Tie-dye is not going to get better. It's going to be getting worse over time. So, yeah. So I expect NC to be, or Panfam, I should say, to be very confident going in because of that alone. So.
Yeah, it's one of those things where you have to end. When we took the fight against Snuff, we knew that we had a finite amount of time to get as much damage done as possible before Pando and Darkshines could get their Supercap fleet from Fountain. And we knew that we had to kill as much that it wasn't feasible for Initiative to move their super fleet. And so that's why we went straight for like the Titans and straight for their faxes is when it happened. And I mean, Pando did an amazing job of getting like at least 5 of their Titans out in 25% hull. And that's the difference to us. Most fights now, because the way the game is, I mean, you can be sure if there's a massive Supercap fight happening, everyone's going to show up in some kind of extent, everyone in the game on both sides. And so you will see that happen. And so it's about doing the best kind of damage at the start before tie-dye kicks in, and that you're in the best position you are before the rest of the game arrives and tie-dye slows down the game.
And yes, I know that you probably don't have an answer to this, and you don't have to answer this, but is there any sort of like kind of line in the sand? Is there like you just don't want them to gain any more, or is do you know what I mean? Like, is there like no more progress, right? And you're just going to push back, or they can take X or that kind of thing? Is there any of that sort of discussion yet?
On my end, I mean, I don't think there's really that much from Initiative. Initiative is there for the fights. I mean, at least when I spoke to Darkshines and Panda. But for us, no, not really. The Tenal was very weird for us. We expected to burn a lot of energy taking it, but it went really quickly. So the investment level from our pilots and a lot of the leaders is quite small. So fighting over the space builds confidence in the region and builds confidence in wanting to hold it. So right now, I don't really particularly see that. I mean, obviously there is that line in the sand of particular assets that we don't want to lose, but those are obviously stuff that we keep close to the chest. But outside of that, we're just interested in kind of getting the fights that we can, and what we can. I don't see anything much past Tenal being a thing, because you have this logistics backbone. Venal's good because they can get back to Tenal's good because they can get back to Cobalt Edge, but like the game changes a lot. For example, if they took all Tenal and then tried to go onto Branch, because you're then relying on having a logistics backbone of multiple Fortizars, whereas right now where they're deployed, they can just jump back to the edge of Cobalt Edge and then jump into Cobalt Edge if they wanted to. For us, even if we decided to move out of where we are backwards into Branch, we still have multiple keep stars and multiple different areas that we can sit on and logistically supply for ages. As Pando said, we have, like, both sides have massively deep pockets, and that's not going to change.
Yeah, and before I forget, I was talking to Chosu the other day, and I asked him. So Pandemic Horde lost 2 supers, and are any of you guys aware of the kind of circumstances? But apparently Chosu got baited or something, and I think that's just a bad start.
No,
But,
I mean, NC
Chosu
lost
was
2
saying
supers
that.
last week.
Yeah.
That's what happens if you move stuff around, though.
Yeah.
If you like move ups, or there wasn't a move up though. I think I heard about it. I haven't looked into the details though.
It was our
yeah.
Japanese guys that killed it. It's happened quite a few times. I mean, it happened to Stardesu from NC last month or the month before. He was doing something stupid in northern Tenal with some bombers, and people were ready for it. I mean, in today's age with the new Sino recons, you can dominate someone before they can get back up. So that's the difference of how that works. That's why it was so easy to jump. I don't think there's much outside of that. I mean, when you're doing stupid shit, you're going to die a lot quicker these days than before.
And just kind of looking at the map and the sort of neutral states / buffer states, have they been truly neutral? Have they been, sort of fighting with one side or the other, or just kind of mixed up in the middle and having fun?
There is a part of Tribute and Veil that is allied with Hanfem, but it's not complete. But they don't show up. The neutral states are become neutral, and they don't really show up at all.
Yeah, I think everyone kind of stays out of it, beside maybe Try. I'm not sure what Try was thinking. Yeah, I would say like typical, That's, everyone kind of ignored it. Mm-hmm. And then someone bigger has to go in and say, let's feel all good about ourselves and take some fights.
Yeah.
And then in Try's case, it probably didn't even work out that well. I think they needed activity too. Yeah, I think they have a hard time against that. I think Kenda's group, Trigger Happy, they grew quite quickly, and I think maybe they underestimated that part. So yeah.
Yeah, Trigger Happy. It's interesting to be able to. I don't know. They're kind of at the center of this big battle, and wondering, if they'll play a role in the future. I doubt it, though. It just kind of goes against everything that they've all been, preaching about, I guess, over the past few months. So, when I was cruising up to see INIT staging, I ran into a small gang. They took care of me pretty quickly. It was pretty fun.
Yeah, you would think though, like these guys are really like literally smack in between the two of you, right? So like for them to be like Switzerland for too long,
they actually aren't. They aren't. It just looks like it. The Tribute and Veil is actually as hard for us to get to as it is for PenFam. It's actually nearly impossible. Like they're not in the middle of us at all. We can't affect them, and NC can't affect them. Geographically, it looks like it's closer, but it's absolutely not.
Right. Okay, well, that's a good point.
I think, and Pando, you sort of were talking about it. There is, sort of an excess, I would say, of, maybe supers and maybe titans and, kind of shaking off and getting a couple of big fights in, right before the holidays might just be good for everyone. We could all lose a little bit,
Yeah, I mean, everyone's saying the game is dying. Might as well get rid of your super titans before. So
the game is dying. 2 more podcasts are starting this week, by the way. Yeah, the game's dying. All right.
Yeah, I mean those blingy ships do you no good when the server's shut down, right?
It's so hard to actually, like, I've heard that term of like let's let's get the super cap fight. But it's so both sides. It's the equivalent of like the Cold War. Both sides have the nuclear option, and it always. I don't hedge any FC deciding not to take a super cap fight at one particular moment, because one side is always looking for the advantage to take the super cap fight on a mistake of the other side, and it's never easy to call the right time to do it. And so I don't hold it against anyone that takes their time, because when it does kick off, tie-dye or not, they're fun fights, but it generally after every super cap fight, the war is over to whoever and you have to either rely on your enemy. If you lose, you have to rely on your enemy either leaving because they've got their pound of flesh, or realize that you're going to lose a lot of your assets afterwards while you recover. And so that's there's a lot more goes into it than what happens at the actual fight.
Yeah, that's a really good point, because a lot of people say like, oh, both sides have unlimited wallets. What's the big deal if we lose a few supers? But like you explained, it's a lot more than what the battle report reveals, right? The number in the battle report is kind of really meaningless compared to what else goes on after that.
It's the replacement. That's the biggest part. It's never about the money. It's about how fast you can replace the ships. Like after the first X-47 fight, we replaced every Titan inside 24 hours. After the second X-47 fight, we replaced 50% of the Titans after 24 hours. And we still needed like at least another month to get them back on as it is. And after the Snuff fight, obviously, I think we only lost four Titans, so it wasn't exactly that big a deal. But time is everything, and everything takes building. I mean, we both have massive stocks of minerals, but you still have to build parts. You still have to build the Titan. And generally, nobody sits on top of empty hulls. I mean, we have maybe 2 or 3 avatars that are empty hulls, but you would most of the time if you have a hull, you give it to a pilot that's active, and that goes into the fight. You need time to replace everything.
What about the moral aspect of it? Like, how does the line members feel on the losing side, and what's the boost look like on the winning side? Does that impact at all? Like when the line members have to log on to Reddit and read about themselves losing this massive super cap fight, does that weigh on it at all? Like, does that slow things down?
So it's less for me. It might affect initiative. It less affects me because most of my group has been hated on for Reddit for such a long time that we don't actually read it anymore. And so 25% of Dead Code now is English that would be possibly affected by Reddit. But the massive bulk of Dead Code's numbers are Chinese and Russian and stuff like that. The Russians and the Chinese are fucking crazy. They want the fight. They want the super cap fight. They don't care how it ends. They're fucking crazy. And so losing or winning, their morale's not going to be affected. If anything, it'll make it better. When we had the super cap fight with Snuff, even though they lost a couple of Titans, the next time when we tried to bait Snuff for the next super cap fight, they had double the amount of supers they had and double the amount of Titans. The Chinese literally only want one thing right now, and that's a super cap fight. They don't care about anything else. That's their thing. And so I have less to worry about morale-wise because of that. And then when you talk about the English side, over 70% of the Titans that Darkness have are my own corp. And so my corp is managed morale-wise by myself and other people who are old people. So there's generally less of a problem. Morale's going to hit either side, no matter what. The one thing that I see happening, like Pando said, is getting rid of the ships, is that it's less going to be a morale hit of like, oh, we lost, of more like, okay, cool, I've lost my Titan now. I've had my last super cap fight. I'm going to salute and peace out of the game now. I've done everything that I need to do.
Yeah, that's always a concern, and on to the Reddit thing. I think that the whole sort of, I understand, and I actually really appreciate narratives, right? Like I like the whole kind of story, as it unfolds, and we're kind of writing this interesting space story kind of thing. I really enjoy that. But then I don't know if it's maybe the newer players or the younger players, but just take it so like to the nth degree where it's like, well, now it's actually not fun. Now it's just personal and weird, right? Like it's just, I like the kind of, betrayal and backstabbing and, and they're friends and they're enemies. Like I love that kind of stuff. But when it hits Reddit, man, it hits this horrible machine that just seems like it makes it the worst version of itself, right?
I think it's not the newer players. I mean, you always had that, that the other side might try to be like, I don't know, insult you and like on a personal level or like all that stuff. People are always saying like, oh, it's the greatest community ever. Yeah, it is. It can also be the worst ever. It's just like with all the people. So that has always been a part of it. And yes, I can appreciate a narrative or spin for the story sake.
Yeah.
And you can see it live in chat, actually. People arguing with each other, saying like, oh, no, these guys outnumber us and they shouldn't be bad following these guys. And that's always what, nobody's really able to put the facts on the table because the time zone plays a role. There's so many things play a role, so you can never have that definite answer to all these questions. So it's an endless debate about like, oh yeah, we're actually fighting outnumbered every day because that's what dude 123 says. And it's just getting so tiring. Like after like I don't know how many wars, like dude, we have been there before. Can we just undock and fight each other already?
Right.
And then or not fight. That's part of it. That's part of the war too, right? I was, for example, last night, our dudes were forming. I was still on at like, I don't even know what time it was, 4 o'clock or some shit. And they were super low on Logi. So I joined the fleet as a Logi pilot. And then it was they were outnumbered. They couldn't fight. You can't just trade with Lokis versus like mutants. So they turn around and leave. And then I get shit talked. It's kind of funny to me, obviously.
Right.
I get shit talked. Oh, look, Pando's running. It's like this narrative. And then that the guys in the echo chamber, they don't know better. They're just gonna take it as it is, And it's the same. It goes the other way around too, obviously, with the whole faction supers and titans dock up and stuff like this. With Killer Bee, he told like, obviously there's like massive spin on this shit, and it's just so.
But if you ask any
so
Titan or Super FC what they would do in that situation, 99% of them would have said the same.
Yeah,
it was a good call, by the way. Like it was absolutely.
Why sit there and die, right? There's no reason for that.
Yeah, so like it was the right call, I would guess, but at the same time, like if someone really wants to keep his toy out, he's not gonna get doomstepped by his own guys. You can just stay there and do it anyway and act like, oh, I'm just a normal Titan.
Exactly.
So obviously, like he gave them that option. If someone is there who doesn't want to die with his faction Titan because the chances are very high, he basically gave them the way out, saying you should dock up, and then nobody's going to look like an idiot or coward. And then obviously people spin it out of control and make these memes, and to a degree I can enjoy that. It's funny. But sometimes people go just that one step too far, where it's getting too personal, and it's just. But then all these guys, like those hater guys, they're the absolute lowest of lowests. Basically, their lives must be miserable to put so much time and effort into this shit, like making Reddit accounts and making whatever, EVE accounts and all that stuff. These guys are suffering on another level. So
one thing that makes me quite sad is because Pando is right. I mean, we had goons come to a couple of fights in Tenal, but we actually stopped them coming a bit because it would actually kill the fights. And we had Pando and his dudes come to some of the fights, and we were having amazing fights. And I'll be honest, I would go to Reddit afterwards and be like, oh, I wonder if this battle report's on there, because it was a credible fight, both sides fighting like crazy. And Reddit's got to the point now where you don't even see the battle reports anymore. You don't really see. anybody talking about the fights. It's just another person talking on another person. And so I'm sitting there going, but like when Pando said, oh, maybe we can get a Supercap fight and we can create some good headlines for CCP and stuff, I'd fucking love that. But the point is now is like, where the fuck is it going to come from? Because nobody's fucking talking about it. Nobody's posting the threads. Nobody's actually like talking about these. We've had some amazing fights against NC in Tenal over the last couple of weeks, or over about the last 8 weeks, even before we moved. And you don't hear about any of them. And it's like, okay, well, what's the point? Why are you sitting in an echo chamber shitting on yourself for no reason in Reddit, instead of actually posting stuff that's happening in game that could be exciting for people to like talk about?
Yeah, I think you're right, and I think that's where media outlets like us, like Talking Stations and other places, can help unravel the real story, and brush away the sort of memes and the shit talk and the I love you and I put my jersey on, and get these stories out there. But I don't really think Reddit is a game, right? If you like playing that game, then it's fun, but I don't think anybody should go there looking for the real truth or to find out what happened. You go there to participate in whatever joke fest is going on that day, right?
Yeah, and it's always so dramatic, right? It's like, so-and-so feeds, la, la, la. But it's like, lost like 2 billion more. Like, whoa, Jesus Christ, man.
Yeah, it's the headline game. It's the
shock value.
It's very, Eve is real, That's what we, that's what people like to say, and it kind of shows, and it's like we have that whole media part, or the media side of Eve. It's very real. It's like in reality. So it's fascinating.
One thing that I dislike is that you guys get this media stuff, right? You say, okay, well, this is what places like TIS and Open Comms or the Meta Show or all these different things have a place to talk. The problem is that for Hando's like point on making a headline for CCP to get new players into the game, a new player is not going to know about like talking in stations. Reddit, like when you type into EVE Online into Google, like one of the top things is going to be the EVE subreddit. And I've always said that if it's not a very good representation of EVE, the EVE Online subreddit, because it doesn't show a good part of the game. So if you go there and looked at the EVE Online subreddit, you would actually think that EVE is a pretty stagnant game. And to an extent, meta-wise and coalition-wise, sure, it's pretty stagnant. But when it comes to day-to-day fights and brawling and stuff like that, there are quite a lot of fights that could be reported on that would show the game in a different aspect. And it doesn't happen these days, and that's a negative towards the game itself.
Yeah, totally valid point. You're absolutely right.
It's something interesting, and I talked to Squiz about this 2 or 3 months ago about like an automatic sort of battle report generator. Like if more than 20 things die within 5 minutes or whatever, there's like an automatic battle report, and then that at least then we can have that as a feed and just see, well, okay, where something happened here, here's a battle report, and kind of report on it, because it is difficult, and I think to Pando's point, where these like super hateful, just rude people, they usually don't last long, like they'll be gone in a year, kind of burning the candle really bright or whatever, and with their hate, and then they leave the game,
Not all of them.
For a long... Not all, but yeah.
For some, that's the content, you know what I mean?
Right.
Like there's quite a few people that just live on that. They probably don't even log in. Yeah. It's the typical Reddit dude, though.
Sort of what I was getting at. Reddit's like a separate game with the EVE as the context, right?
Yeah, it's like a
story. Wait for you to say
game.
something, right? Because then it's salt. If you say anything at all, it's salt.
Right.
If you even look in that direction, that's salt.
Yeah, you try to go in there and explain really what happened, you just get shit on.
Exactly. I got baited into that stuff like a couple of times. I'm so dumb when it comes to that stuff. I'm like, oh, I can convince this guy totally, right? I'm
Right.
like,
Yeah.
But what you don't realize
So
is he doesn't want to be convinced. He just likes the poke the bear, right?
hey, to be fair, I always had that debate about like hard knocks and like, oh, they never had a chance and bullshit. And I'm not going to go into details on this, but
Right.
like at least one of them, I know one of them came around saying, actually, yeah, looking at all the battle reports, and we linked the facts, I linked all the facts. I'm like, look at this, look at this, look at this. And he's like, oh, actually, you're right. And then, I was happy with that. I couldn't believe it. And it's like, finally, that one guy, I found him.
I'm going to need citations because I don't believe you.
Yeah.
I think one thing that I find is very interesting about that situation is there are certain people on Reddit who are they will flop between one side to another depending on how the argument goes at that particular time, and so you'll be like you actually don't feel about anything, you just want to see the fire keep going. So you'll see the posting come out, and then this week they'll be like, "Grr, Panfam, grr," and you're like, "Oh, okay, cool. I don't know who you are." And the next week, "Grr, Deadco," and you're like, do you have any allegiances, or are you just here to like throw fucking wood on the fire?
Some men
it's
just
our
wants
turn.
to watch the world
Test.
burn. Right?
We're next. Yeah, and I don't know. It's just such a, I don't know. To your point, Sort, one of the things that we were talking about just a couple of weeks ago actually was, our ranking, on the front page, right, of Google, and there was like some loading issues or whatever, and we were like being kicked over the second page, and it really wasn't like for money or whatever, because we make like coffee money, right, for this, but it's like just to get a positive message, right, about it's like actually really, really interesting and really fun, and engaging to play. It's not, the meme festival or whatever, that you would see on Reddit.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, I mean, did you guys have anything else you wanted to talk about in this kind of upcoming? Have you guys thought of a name? Christmas War?
Yeah, everyone. Reddit needs the name, guys. So
yeah, you name it first. That's the one that'll stick.
Maybe it's the first Reddit war.
Oh my god!
Reddit. Everyone who's posting on Reddit is a tie.
Well, can it really be that if none of them ever come to a fight, if they don't log in? Does that count?
Well, op success then. I guess we head up and leave.
Stay not logged on. We win.
I don't know what this. I don't even know what we could call our group initiative in Deadco. I don't even know what we could do it. I hadn't even thought about what naming the war, to be honest. And then I realized, yeah, obviously people are going to want to name it something. I think the people will decide, I guess. But I think it's going to be like the recon war. I think, because it's all this war is definitely going to be decided by who has the best Sino recon.
I think if you try to coin a name too hard, if you try too hard, it's impossible to actually do it. So let's see. Let's hope someone funny and creative comes up with something that sticks, and not some crap. I mean, we had some bad names. What's the best war name ever? If you think about
Halloween.
I was gonna say Halloween War, because that's cool, right?
That's awesome. That's a great name.
Oh, I don't know.
It wasn't the Halloween war. It was like it just happened to come around Halloween. It wasn't. The war had been going for like 4 months before.
Yeah,
but it ended in Halloween,
right?
I guess.
Well, and the word Halloween, like, it gives it the connotation. It's kind of spooky and dark, right?
Yeah, I kind of like the name World War B. I have to admit that. The Casino War sounds boring, but World War B kind of sounds fun.
And the World War Re for Reddit.
I really like that one too, because it came out right around the time of World War Z, right? The movie. Like, I thought that was just a fantastic name.
Well, a lot of people didn't realize it was called World War B because, one, we were fighting goons, and two, the leader of our side at the time was killed. So that was the point of why it was called World War B. It wasn't just a hit on goons.
Yeah, that's interesting. I think most people think it's just a hit on goons. Yeah.
Well, the one I think interesting thing about that is that was the first time that I saw CCP do backgrounds for a war that I noticed it. I thought that was just super cool.
I'd like to see them get back on it. I'd
Yep,
like to see them get
I
back.
agree.
Yeah, for sure.
That's
It-
one thing I'm
it's-
trying to encourage the guy that does the scope videos to do, and he's doing some really cool work. On
Is that
some,
one
like,
guy?
yeah, it's CCP Loki. He's their video guy. He does all the scope videos. I've been trying to always get him to do more. He's doing some pretty cool stuff that he was filming for at Vegas, and hopefully he'll get back on them. But normally it's not very hard just to like kind of DM him and say, look, there's this war going on if you want to do something about it. But obviously he's doing lots of video stuff with regards to the Eve World Tour. But I think once that's over and winter comes and there's fuck all else to do except for stay inside and edit graphics in Iceland, I think you'll see more.
Which one was the last one he did? Did he cover the war of you guys?
I
Dinosaurs
don't
Founders?
think so. He's been
There
focusing
was
on a lot
an
of the scope
ISD
videos to
guy.
help people.
Yeah. There was an ISD guy that was coming down and taking some videos and stuff.
Oh, he's
I mean, I'll be
probably
honest.
involved in the nuclear stuff.
The player base as well is also not very good. One of the biggest trolls about World War B is that we told CCP that Killer B was our leader for that coalition, but it was bullshit. We just wanted to spin a narrative. So at some point, you've also got to understand that CCP is probably like, can we trust these people with these narratives? We spun some stupid narratives in that war that just simply weren't true. And that's where the World War B name came up for us, because Killer B actually made the name in an interview with the CCP guy on the fly, and that's why they reported on it. So I can see where they sometimes don't want to put their effort in, because the player base can be quite kind of not toxic, but trolly.
Well, yeah, they'll troll the heck out of them for sure, mislead them. They won't know which part is true.
So really, I only have two pieces of news. The first, and this is a question for you guys: have you been impacted or been able to meet any of this just wonderful influx of new Korean players with like bright-eyed and just running around in Merlins and just having a great time? Like, I just think it's absolutely fantastic. Have you guys had like people applying or kind of roaming in your space? And actually, Initiative Mercenaries just got into a fight with a bunch of Merlins for the new Korean players.
Yeah, I heard about that. I have no idea though. I was a little bit busy the last week, so
Right?
like I missed all of that. But yeah, it's great. I always say like there's a lot of like little issues, not little issues, like there's a lot of issues with the game and all that stuff. If we had 10 times the player numbers though, all these issues would be very tiny and nobody would even talk about all that stuff. And
The
everyone
future of the
would be
game is-
busy shooting.
The future of Eve is in the East. It's in Asia. I hope, as I tweeted out last week, I hope that CCP uses this as a springboard to localize other different areas, because like the Japanese are looking for localization. There used to be localization, there isn't anymore. There are so many groups that have that bright-eyedness in their face, and the Westerners just don't play the game like they used to. They're so easily distracted between other games and like shit posting on Reddit instead of actually taking fights. Whereas the Easterners could, or Asians could actually potentially take over the game. You're seeing it with Korea, and that was just because they've got localization. Imagine what happens if you give that to Japan, if you give that to Thailand, Indonesia,
Yep.
like all those different places.
And also, I want to give a little shout out to our guys from Guardians of Parallel World. That's actually our Korean co-op. Or actually, I'm not sure if they're all Korean, to be honest, but they have a lot of Korean players. And that was actually the battle report that you have opened there. That's actually a Korean FC was a Korean FC. Yeah.
Oh, that's excellent. And this fight, this fight looks pretty interesting. They traded pretty well despite being pretty hard outclassed, right? This looks like it might have been a lot of fun for both sides.
Yeah, I mean, as always, with Z-Kill, obviously, you don't get the full story. I have no
Sure.
idea what happened there. But looking at it, I would guess the fight was probably, that was several stages of the fight.
Right.
You know,
Yeah, this
people
wasn't
went in,
right.
fought, and then the fight kicked off again or something. I don't know what happened there.
Agreed.
Well,
but
it's only like 1.4.
But it looks
to
like both
900
sides
or
had fun.
something.
So.
Yeah.
I mean, this is sort of what you want when you go out in T1 Frigate Gang, right? You find a group that's a bit that has you outclassed, and then you trade, right? You kill some of their blingy stuff, and then you wind up with this ISK report that's sort of even. And you're right, this looks like it had several stages to it, so that's really great.
Yeah, they killed like 5 or 6 jackdaws. Like they're winning, man. That's awesome. I mean,
Yeah, you
the
got a
efficiency is
Kieran,
about
too.
43%. Good on them, man. That's awesome.
Yeah, scale it up in a year. They're all going to be flying, guess what? Munins. So.
Munins or something that comes next, yeah.
Sad, but yeah.
TBD, right?
I hope.
Munins
I
are
mean,
coming out.
they're hinting it. I hope they get that nerfed.
All they have to do
Like,
is cut the speed by like 30%. Done. That thing will be history.
Yeah,
And,
maybe buff some other classes.
Yeah, right. So the last piece of news I have, and Pando, I actually don't know if you're involved, but the charity streaming this weekend. Are you signed up for that?
So this weekend I'm in East London. So no, but I put
I
on
know,
the,
but like
the weekend after it is.
Oh, okay.
Like I have trouble, obviously. The guys who are watching my stream know I've trouble getting like a fixed schedule. So committing on like a certain day would be hard.
Yeah.
But I will try to support the thing. I actually had the little banner.
It is the weekend after next. That's my bus. Yeah, it's the very end of November.
Yeah, I'll try to support that. That's a good cause. So yeah, I've never done any like cooperation, not cooperation. What do you call it? Like I never worked with other streamers
Like
together.
Coordinated other streamers, like kind of passing off kind of thing. Yeah.
So it might be even.
It's really easy.
Might be a good opportunity to learn some stuff too.
Yeah, it's basically when you hand off, you turn off the stream. That's pretty much it. Yeah, so I'll be doing it, and I think I'm signed up for Saturday night, and I'm like giving away a Nyx or something, and it's actually a really nice Nyx, like fully combat fit, like ready to go, like so looking forward to that. That'll be a lot of fun. And the mass test was today. I did that. New Stargate animations, so that was actually really cool looking.
Neat, yeah. I love all the
Cool.
little pretty things you do.
Any more? So, Sort, you have any shout outs or anything?
No, just let's try and keep this Tenal war in the game. That's what I would say. Go from there. I mean, there's a lot of people shit talking. I think the best thing to do is keep the fight where. And report bots. The common misconception that I don't like that I support botting. Report bots. Stop shit talking on Reddit and go and actually report the bot. That's all I have to say. Also, I just got CCP just announced in our CSM that I'm allowed to say actually is the Ether Wars is happening on at 8 p.m. on Saturday this week, by the way, and the winner will receive 2 tickets, a flight, and hotel to FanFest, and then 1 person at random will be chosen for the same prize as well.
Oh,
so that's quite nice.
That is very nice. Get out there and do it.
I looked at the leaderboard. Like I ended that Ether Wars test with like 3,400, and the winner was like at 43,000. Like I don't know where this is coming from, man.
Dude, I streamed it. It was miserable for me, and I got lost somewhere at the end. Like I'm like, where even am I? It was just completely pointless. So yeah. And I didn't understand the rules either. Like I went in completely like uninformed. And some people, I felt like they had a little bit of a head start. They actually got informed. They knew, like they informed themselves obviously, and then they kind of figured it out way quicker. And they knew, okay, we just have to hunt the guys with the big points. And then
I was like playing like for half an hour before I even realized it was like there was points involved. Like, I thought I was just flying around shooting stuff.
But yeah,
Silver, you have any shout outs, buddy?
No,
Oh.
I along with those. Go ahead. Do you have something else?
Oh no! I cut Pando off. Pando,
Yeah,
what
I
were
just
you
wanted
gonna
to
say?
say I'm gonna totally win the 2v2 tournament in Eve London though, so I'm gonna hopefully get a ticket to Iceland.
Do it.
That'd be nice.
Oh, that would be very cool, man.
Calling you all out, everyone.
You heard it here. He's
The war's
winning
on.
the 2v2 tournament. Come at me, bro.
Who's your partner, Pando? Do you know yet?
Lexi, like he was top motivated and said like we have to do it, and he's one of our skirmish FC, and yeah, like do it. Can't say no. Let's do it.
It's a really good format. Actually, a lot of fun. I didn't participate in Toronto, but a couple of my guys did. Watching it, it's a lot of fun.
Yeah, I have no idea how it works actually, but yeah,
You'll enjoy
probably
it.
gonna win.
It's up your style.
Right. Well, I think that's everything I had. If nobody has anything else, awesome. Hey, Sort, thanks for waking up this early in the morning for you, and Pando, thanks for staying up late for us. Well, you
Hey,
know,
11 a.m. is early, man.
He just came home, didn't he?
Right.
That's my wife. That's my wife. I should have been up at 8.
Oh, well, there you go. All right. Well, so that's everything here. So everyone, thanks so much for watching, and
Hey, one thing,
we'll
Ron,
see you
before
next
we
time
go.
on.
One thing before we go. What happened? I've lost Discord. Oh well. I guess we'll fade out. But Legacy Cup is running it's going to be streamed this weekend. There's a tournament going on inside Legacy. It's a lot of fun to watch. I think it's a good format. It's over on the Warp stream. Check it out. It's be a lot of fun.
Voltron Cup, right?
Voltron Cup, yeah.
Is that? Wait a second. Is that also the? Is that the thing that's organized by DTM and the guys? Because I know they are working on something
That's
too.
Eve CS, right?
Yeah.
They're calling it Eve CS. That's been ongoing. He's got like seasons.
So the sign-ups are open. So I just looked it up. He actually sent me a minute. So sign-ups are open for that. It's called Winter Splits of EFCS. So there you go. Tournaments going on everywhere.
That's awesome. And we can all watch the Eve London tournament to see. Will they have Bushes there? Because that's really what I'd need to know before I pick a winner for Eve London. All right, guys. Thanks so much for coming. Everyone, thanks for watching. And that is all we have. So see you next time, guys.
Take care, everyone.
See ya.